Gotthold Ephraim Lessing, German, the 22nd of January 1729 to the 15th of February 1781, was a German writer, philosopher, dramatist, publicist and art critic, and a representative of the Enlightenment era. His plays and theoretical writings substantially influenced the development of German literature. He is widely considered by theater historians to be the first dramaturg in his role at Able Sailor's Hamburg National Theatre. First image of him wearing a blue suit is a portrait of Lessing by Anna Rosina Lysowska during his time at dramaturg of Able Sailor's Hamburg National Theatre from 67 to 68. He was born in Commons, Upper Lusatia, Saxony, and he died in Brunswick, Lüneburg. His occupation, we've already gone through. Alma Mater, Leipzig University, University of Wittenberg. Notable works: Miss Sarah Sampson, Amelia Galati, Mina von Barnhelm, Nathan the Wise, Laocoon, Hamburg Dramaturgy, Spouse, Eva Koenig. I guess I could include an image of signature. We're pausing right now because I'm reducing the screenshot that I will be adding to the video, and you'll just be seeing it in real time. I know. Life. Lessing was born in Commons, a small town in Saxony, to Johann Gottfried Lessing and Justine Salome Feller. His father was a Lutheran minister and wrote on theology. Young Lessing studied at the Latin school in Commons from 1737 to 1741. With a father who wanted his son to follow in his footsteps, Lessing next attended the Vorstellungsschule St. Afra in Meissen. After completing his education at St. Afra's, he enrolled at the University of Leipzig, where he pursued a degree in theology, medicine, philosophy, and philology from 1746 to 48. It was here that his relationship with Caroline Neuberg, a famous German actress, began. He translated several French plays for her, and his interest in theater grew. During this time, he wrote his first play, The Young Scholar. Neuberg eventually produced the play in 1748. From 1748 to 1760, Lessing lived in Leipzig and Berlin. He began to work as a reviewer and editor for the Vossische Zeitung and other periodicals. Lessing formed a close connection with his cousin, Gotthold Emilius, and decided to follow him to Berlin. In 1750, Lessing and Emilius teamed together to begin a periodical publication named Beitrag zur Historie und Aufnahme der Dieter, The publication ran only 4 issues, but it caught the public's eye and revealed Lessing to be a serious critic and theorist of drama. In 1752, he took his master's degree in Wittenberg. From 1760 to 1765, he worked in Breslau, now Wrocław, as secretary to General Tauentzien during the 7 Years' War between Britain and France, which had effects in Europe. It was during this time that he wrote his famous Laocoon, or The Limitations of Poetry. In 1765, Lessing returned to Berlin, leaving in 1767 to work for 3 years at the Hamburg National Theater. Actor-manager Konrad Ackermann began construction of Germany's first permanent national theater in Hamburg, established by Johann Friedrich Lohn. The owners of the new Hamburg National Theater hired Lessing as the theater's critic of plays and acting, an activity later known as dramaturgy based on his own words, making Lessing the very first dramaturge. The theater's main backer was Abel Seyler, a former currency speculator who since became known as the leading patron of German theater. There he met Eva Koenig, his future wife. His work in Hamburg formed the basis of his pioneering work on drama, titled Hamburgische Dramaturgie. Unfortunately, because of financial losses due to pirated editions of Hamburgische Dramaturgie, the Hamburg Theater closed just 3 years later. In 1770, Lessing became a librarian at the Ducal Library, now the Herzog August Library, Herzog August Bibliothek, Bibliotheca Augusta, in Wolfenbüttel, under the commission of the Duke of Brunswick. His tenure there was energetic, if interrupted by many journeys. In 1775, for example, he accompanied Prince Leopold to Italy. On the 14th of October 1771, Lessing was initiated into Freemasonry in the lodge Zu den 3 Goldenen Rosen in Hamburg. In 1773, he discovered Archimedes' cattle problem in a Greek manuscript containing a poem of 44 lines in the Herzog August Library in Wolfenbüttel. This problem would remain unsolved until 1880. In 1776, he married Eva Koenig, who was then a widow, in Jork, near Hamburg. She died in 1778 after giving birth to a short-lived son. On 15th of February 1781, Lessing, aged 52, died during a visit to the wine dealer Angot in Brunswick. Lessing was also famous for his friendship with Jewish German philosopher Moses Mendelssohn. A recent biography of Mendelssohn's grandson, Felix, describes their friendship as one of the most illuminating metaphors for the clarion call of the Enlightenment for religious tolerance. It was this relationship that sparked his interest in popular religious debates of the time. He began publishing heated pamphlets on his beliefs, which were eventually banned. It was this banishment that inspired him to return to theater to portray his views and to write Nathan the Wise. Works. Early in his life, Lessing showed interest in the theater. In his theoretical and critical writings on the subject, as in his own plays, he tried to contribute to the development of a new type of theater in Germany. With this, he especially turned against the then predominant literary theory of Gotthold and his followers. Lessing's Hamburgische Dramaturgie ran critiques of plays that were performed in the Hamburg theater, but after dealing with dissatisfied actors and actresses, Lessing redirected his writings to more of an analysis on the proper uses of drama. Lessing advocated the outline of drama in Aristotle's Poetics. He believed the French Academy had devalued the uses of drama through their neoclassical rules of form and separation of genres. His repeated opinions on this issue influenced theater practitioners who began the movement of rejecting theater rules known as Sturm und Drang, storm and stress. He also supported serious reception of Shakespeare's works. He worked with many theater groups, e.g. the one of Newbegin. In Hamburg, he tried with others to set up the German National Theater. Today his own works appear as prototypes of the later developed bourgeois German drama. Scholars see Miss Sarah Sampson and Amelia Galati as amongst the first bourgeois tragedies. Mina of Bachenhel as the model for many classic German comedies. Nathan the Wise, Nathan der Weise, as the first German drama of ideas, Ideendrama. His theoretical writings Laublumen and Hamburg Dramaturgie, Hamburgische Dramaturgie, set the standards for the discussion of aesthetics and literary theoretical principles. Lessing advocated that dramaturgs should carry their work out working directly with theater companies rather than in isolation. In his religious and philosophical writings, he defended the faithful Christians' right for freedom of thought. He argued against the belief in revelation and the holding on to a literal interpretation of the Bible by the predominant Orthodox doctrine. Through a problem later to be called Lessing's ditch, Lessing outlined the concept of the religious proof of power. How can miracles continue to be used as a base for Christianity when we have no proof of miracles? Historical truths which are in doubt cannot be used to prove metaphysical truths, such as God's existence. As Lessing says it, that then is the ugly great ditch which it cannot cross, however often and however earnestly I have tried to make that leap. In the final leg of his life, Lessing threw himself into an intense evaluation of theology and religion. He did much of his studying by reading manuscripts he found while working as a librarian. While working for the Duke, he formed a close friendship with the family by the name of Heimachus. The family held an unpublished manuscript by Hermann Samuel Heimachus, which attacked the historicity of Christian revelation. Despite discouragement from his brother Karl Gotthold, he began publishing pieces of the manuscript and pamphlets known as fragments from an unnamed author. The controversial pamphlets resulted in a heated debate between him and another theologian, Johann Melchior Goes. In concern for tarnishing his reputation, Beres requested the government to put an end to the feud, and Lessing was silenced through a law that took away his freedom from censorship. In response, Lessing relied upon his skills as a playwright to write what is undoubtedly his most influential play, Nathan the Wise. In the play, Lessing set up the tension between Judaism, Islam, and Christianity by having one character ask Nathan which religion was the most genuine. Nathan avoids the question by telling the parable of the 3 rings, which implies the idea that no specific religion is the correct religion. The Enlightenment ideas to which Lessing held tight were portrayed through his ideal of humanity, stating that religion is relative to the individual's ability to reason. Nathan the Wise is considered to be the first example of the German literature of humanity. As a child of the Enlightenment, he trusted in a Christianity of reason, which oriented itself by the spirit of religion. He believed that human reason, initiated by criticism and dissent, would develop, even without help by divine revelation. In his writing, The Education of Humankind, Die Erziehung des Menschengeschlechts, he extensively and coherently lays out his position, Menschengeschlecht, the idea of freedom for the theater against the dominance of its French model. For religion from the church's dogma is his central theme throughout his life. Therefore, he also stood up for the liberation of the upcoming middle and upper class from the nobility making up their minds for them. In his own literary existence, he also constantly strove for independence. But his ideal of a possible life as a free author was hard to keep up against the economic constraints he faced. His project of authors self-publishing their works, which he tried to accomplish in Hamburg with C.J. Bode, failed. Lessing is important as a literary critic for his work Laugu, an essay on the limits of painting and poetry. In this work, he argues against the tendency to take Horace's Ut pictura poesis as painting, so poetry is prescriptive for literature. In other words, he objected to trying to write poetry using the same devices as one would in painting. Instead, poetry and painting each has its character. The former is extended in time, the latter is extended in space. This is related to Lessing's turn from French classicism to an Aristotelian mimesis, discussed above. Attack by Johann Daniel Müller. The radical pietist Johann Daniel Müller, born 1716 in Wissenbach, Nassau, today part of Eschenburg, deceased after 1785, published the following anonymous book against Lessing and Reimachus. Johann Daniel Müller. Der Sage der Wahrheit des Wortes Gottes über die Lügen des Wolfenbüttelchen Bibliothekare Gotthold Ephraim Lessing und seines Fragmenten Schreibers Hermann Samuel Reimachus in eigen Lasterungen gegen Jesum Christum, seine Jünger, Apostel und die ganze Bibel, 1780. C.F. Reinhard Breimeyer, ein unbekannter Gegner Gotthold Ephraim Lessings, der ehemalige Frankfurter Konzertdirektor Johann Daniel Müller aus Wissenbach-Nassau, 1716 bis 1785. Alchemist im Umkreis Johann Wolfgang Goethes, Kabbalist, separatistischer Chiliast, Freund der Illuminaten von Avignon, Elias-Artiste, Dietrich Meyer, Pietismus, Ehrenutertum, Erweckungsbewegung, Weißschrift, Führer, Eirik, Bücherei, Berhüter, Köln, Pülheim, Braueilier, und Bonn, 1982, Schriftenreihe des Feierens für rheinische Kirchengeschichte, Volume 70, pages 109 to 145, and page 108, Silhouette of John Daniel Müller. Selected works. Der Junge Gelehrte, The Young Scholar, 1748. Der Freigeist, The Free Thinker, 1749. Die Juden, The Jews, 1749. Miss Sarah Sampson, 1755. Philotas, 1759. Fables, 1759. Laukün oder über die Grenzen der Malerei und Poesie, Laukün, 1767. Mine von Barnhelm, 1767. Hamburgische Dramaturgie, 1767-69. Emilia Galotri, 1772. Antiquaries, 1778. Written against Johann Melchior Gross, pastor in Hamburg. Nathan the Wise, 1779. Ernst und Falk, Sprache für Freimaurerei, 1776 to 1778. Die Erziehung des Menschengeschlechts, The Education of the Human Race, 1780. English translations, Fables and Epigrams, London, printed for J. and H.L. Hunt, 1825. Oh gosh, this is a lot of text. Anyways, good. Laocoon, or The Limits of Poetry and Painting, translated by William Ross, London, Ridgway, 1836. Nathan the Wise, a dramatic poem in 5 acts, translated by Adolf Reich, London, W. Bennett, 1860. Nathan the Wise, a dramatic poem of 5 acts, translated by Dr. Isidor Kalisch, New York, Waldheimer and Singh, 1869. The Education of the Human Race, translated by Fred W. Robertson. M.A., London, C.K. Paul and Company, 1881. Plays of Lessing, Nathan the Wise and Mina von Barenhen, translated by Ernest Bell, London, G. Bell, 1888. Selected prose works of G. Lessing, translated by E.C. Beasley, B.A., and Helen Zimmer, London, G. Bell and Sons, 1890. Lessing's Amelia Galati, with footnotes and vocabulary, New York, Heinz and Nober, 1899. Lessing's Nothing der Weise, with footnotes and vocabulary, New York, Heinz and Nober, 1899. Laocoon, an essay upon the limits of painting and poetry, with remarks illustrative of various points in the history of ancient art, translated by Ellen Frothingham, Boston, Little, Brown, 1904. Laocoon, translated by Sir Robert Fillmore, London, G. Routledge and Sons, 1905. Mina von Barenhen, edited with an introduction, German questions, notes and vocabulary by Philip Schuyler, Allen, New York, Charles E. Merrill Company, 1907. Mina von Barenhen, or Soldier's Fortune, translated by Otto Hiller, New York, H. Holt and Company, 1917. Nothing der Wise, a dramatic poem in 5 acts, translated and edited by Leo Marcon, Gerard Gon Haldeman and Julius Company, 1926. Laocoon, Nothing the Wise, Mina von Barenhen, translated by William A. Steele, London, J.M. Dent and Sons Limited, New York, E.P. Jutton and Company, Inc., 1930. Nathan the Wise. Translated by Berthold August Eisenlohr on Arbor, Meech, litho printed by Edwards Brothers, Inc., 1942. Nathan the Wise, translated by Günther Reinhardt, Brooklyn, Barron's Educational Series, Inc., 1950. Nathan the Wise, a dramatic poem in 5 acts, translated into English by verse by Bayard Quincy Morgan, New York, Ungar, 1955. Theological writings, selections and translation with an introductory essay by Henry Chodvik, London, A&C, Black, 1956. Lessing's theological writings, Selections and Translation, edited by Henry Chadwick, Stanford University Press, 1957. Emilia Galati, A Tragedy in 5 Acts, translated by Anna Joanna Gerd von Eiche, Great Neck, NY, Barron's Educational Series, Inc., 1959. Emilia Galati, A Tragedy in 5 Acts, translated by Edward Dvoritsky, New York, Ungar, 1962. Reprinted German Book Center, 2003. Hamburg, Dramaturgie, translated by Victor Lange, New York, Dover Publications, 1962. Reprint of Helen Zimmermann's 1890 translation. Laocoon, an essay on the limits of painting into poetry, translated by Edward Allen McCormick, Indianapolis, Bob Smith, 1962. Mina von Barnhelm, A Comedy in 5 Acts, translated by Kenneth J. Northcott, Chicago, University of Chicago Press, 1972. Nathan the Wise, Mina von Barnhelm, and Other Plays and Writings, edited by Peter Demetz with a foreword by Hannah Arendt, New York, Continuum, 1991. Nathan the Wise with related documents, translated, edited, and with an introduction by Ronald Schechter, Boston, New York, Bedford, St. Martin's, 2004. Philosophical and Theological Writings, edited by H.B. Nisbet, Cambridge University Press, 2005. See also Fable, Greek Revival, Lessing Monument, Tiergarten, Berlin, Lessing Theater, Pantheism Controversy,